Looking at this Astelle from different photographs now, it's like more of a straight down angle. It actually does not look like a frog shape. Definitely looks, actually, more than anything, it looks like a pig or a boar if you're going to think of an animal. But I think that it's meant to be a dragon, because it definitely is a Liberty Cap shape. There's no doubt about it. It literally is like a Liberty Cap. And if you study like Terence McKenna and Dennis McKenna and Jonathan Norton, all of the psychedelics and ayahuasca, that experience is the you see in South America they have this jaguar and other characters, which is very sort of similar style to those, but they usually have it's like a mystical beast, so it is referred to as the dragon because it's meant to be sort of it's sort of kind of like God basically, but it's sort of like, you use the symbol of the dragon because the dragon is the ancient beast. The dragon is this sort of archaic ancient beast, like reptilian, when you go back in evolution, all the way back through evolution, all the way back through, right down, the lizard, the reptile is a very ancient old creature. Reptiles are very old and ancient, and the dinosaurs were reptiles, and like I said, they will have known about dinosaurs for finding bones, a lot more available back then to find anyway, so than they are now. So the thing with this experience, if you look at a lot of Alex Grey paintings sort of depict this sort of united consciousness or all-pervading consciousness. Some call it, like, if you go on some, like, there's a YouTube channel called The Liberal Hive Mind sort of thing. And it's sort of like, if you look at, even a clock, if you look at, if you get an old-fashioned clock, and you look inside it and there's all these little cogs and tiny parts, little whirring cogs and parts. There are all these like loads of tiny moving parts. Well, the psychedelic experience, it kind of is like, it sort of, it reduces, or it breaks down the human experience into its core components, which you can sort of feel, examine and inspect, and it's sort of, it's almost like the human version with your body of looking at the inside the clock and looking at all the separate cogs and whirling parts. Now, and a scientist might say, that's a load of rubbish because, you're not actually operating on a person or using a scalpel and cutting them open and having an actual look inside them. But that type of person is a very limited intellect, and it's almost like why archaeology is failing to understand the culture and these people properly, because it's about the, when you see all these microorganisms, that are like, one or two cells or more, and then they build up and grow, obviously adding on all the time. So, when you get to, what we are now, a lot of our functioning and a lot of our processes are now automated and done automatically. Like, if you cut your finger, you don't have to like look at it and, speak to the chemicals to go there, send, healing chemicals to go there and, coagulate the blood and then start forming the scar. It does it automatically, but there are signals and processes there. When you are an organism that is less complicated like us, and there are only like very minimal signals there, and at the end of the day, what is that signal? It is just like, a lot of these signals are on and off, like, like Morse code, on, off, and things like that. But there's definitely, this is the thing, when you're distracted with, the outside world, you aren't aware or thinking of these things. Obviously, if you were in somewhere like, one of these cairns or chambers or whatever, and which blocks off the outside world, and you're doing all this meditation. But it's obviously when you are tweaking or modulating the brain regions and senses, you get to go into all these experiences when you're focusing on them and concentrating on them. And one of the manifestations is the dragon. There are lots of other different manifestations and states. Like, you can have out of body experiences, and you can actually be in like a dream state, which is sort of still human, but just in a different landscape, or a dream landscape, or it's there are actually different aspects to it. But that's all about the exploration part of it, But the dragon is the sort of because you get this because the consciousness of it, is actually like a creature in a way. It's almost as if the world is a creature, and consciousness, it pervades all separate humans and all separate animals, and it's sort of, even though they're not aware of it, in the same way that if you hurt your knee, or if you hurt your foot, and your body sends things to cure it, but you're not actually, it sort of does it automatically, and in your mind, you aren't, you are not you're not using your vocals like as a command to say send down molecules to my foot or whatever. You're not doing that. It sort of does it itself. Now, in the way that it's not in your mind, and you aren't aware of that process doing that, in the same way, if you think of the world and creatures doing things like going about the business, going down to the woods and, chopping wood and then bringing back firewood and putting it, in the wood store, and then you go, somewhere else. These separate animals and creatures are going about the business and doing things. You can you can see it as there is a all-pervading, sort of kind of, maybe even the word hive sort of consciousness between them that could be orchestrative, but they aren't necessarily aware of it. Maybe you can notice it, or but usually you're not. But this is meant to be even the word orchestra, orchestrated, and the whole point of the, in fact, thinking about this Astelle now, I've just thought of like the music conductor as a music conductor stick, so you're conducting everything. But this is when you're getting into the whole kings and queens and monarchy, and they're meant to be, like the queen beehive mind, and everyone's under their power or whatever of humans, because they've got some apparently superiority or something like that. That is the subject it goes into. I thought of the word. I was thinking of this Astelle thing earlier, and I was thought of the word heirlooms. It's like heirlooms, but an heir is something that you inherit. So when you pass things down through generations, or you've got certain rulerships passed down, it's heirloom. You're looming. So when we get into the subject of our ancient sites and being destroyed or ignored, it's almost like the air, the weaving, the looming of the previous conquered culture is actually being uprooted and pulled out, and they don't really want you to try and remember it. You know what I mean? It's almost as if, but they're building their own new castles and their own new monuments and their own new language. It's almost like when you use the term naughty, for like, the Irish and with the O'Connells and the O'Donnellys and the O'Donohues and all this, and it's, it's using to say, oh, naughty is bad. And then you've got these roundhouse places like at Breeding on the Hill, which is like meant to be a lockup for naughty people, but it's like the roundhouse shape. That is almost an attack on the previous culture, because you're actually tarning it, you're spoiling it, you're ruining it, you're marring it, and it's actually, there's a law, and I've got it in this petition. I put the law says that you're not supposed to attack another religion or ancient sites in any way, you know. So it's actually illegal and criminal to do that, funnily enough. Even if you've conquered somewhere, apparently it's illegal to ruin their heirlooms and you know, to attack their previous culture, even though, you know, you've got a new culture that's in charge. It's you're not meant to ruin, you know, spoil or mar the others. It's meant to be legitimately historic and studied and looked at in museums. You know, it's not meant to be attacked. Funnily enough, but you can see how, you know, with heirlooms, you know, to make, obviously, you know, if you want to make yourself more powerful, then you want, you know, your heirlooms to be looming more dense and stronger, and if there's anything that could affect that in opposition, it would be the previous culture's heirlooms, you know, but yet they're protected. But, you know, funnily enough, we find that, you know, they do get marred and spoiled with these naughty names and things like that. So it's quite, for me, it's difficult. There's so many different areas to talk about that are interconnected somehow, that, you know, it's hard to talk about this Astelle and not go off on a bit of a tangent, because there's so many different things to talk about. And in fact, I said it looked like it is very strange that it almost is like a psychedelic frog. That's why I would question its authenticity. But if you think of that, when I was doing my map, and I didn't know the word for west was ear, right? And the word for the direction towards Ireland, the west is ire, sorry, not ear, and the east is ear and ire. And I'd started drawing the map, and it had got this character on with these ears that were like pointers, and it was pointing towards the ear. The long ear is pointing towards what is actually called ear on the compass. And I didn't know that, because it wasn't until after I've been doing the painting that I went to get the words from the Celtic Gaelic words, and then I decided to do the compass after and look at what the words were, and I'd already done the other bit. So that was really weird that I picked that up. So maybe there is some mystical truth. Maybe this is the magic that maybe at the time, you know, in the 8900s, if this piece is legitimate, maybe it was one of those coincidences, like, oh yeah, look, it looks also like a little bit like psychedelic fog, and they're doing that over in the continent in America. Maybe they was just weird, you know. Or maybe they legitimately had gone over there and knew about it. Or maybe that could be evidence that this is not legitimate. But it definitely, from above, it's definitely not like a frog jaw anyway. It actually is like a magic mushroom shape, and it's also kind of phallic as well. When you go into the detail here, this bit there, but then you've got the bit that holds the rod. So, you know, there are some also little magic mushroom shapes here, very prominent, actually going towards the eyes, which I think that's significant. In fact, the one on the right hand side looks like a really big mushroom, and the one on the left looks small. They both look like different sizes. And then you actually got something underneath his ear there, a little gold spiral. It's almost like a cochlea, you know. It's almost like they might have dissected the cochlea. And then you got these weird flowers. I mean, you might try and say the poppies, but they're not, because they don't actually have the other petal on. But then they're both originating from down in the gut area, where there's a jewel there, and then they're both going up in separate directions, though, oddly enough. They look more like butterflies, to be honest. This looks like a little smiley face here, doesn't it? If anything, with a little tongue out. That looks like a little frog with his tongue out. But it also looks like, you know, maybe like it kind of makes me think of Friar Tuck, you know, eating. But it's got like a smiley face on it. It is an interesting item for sure. You know, I'm looking for the dating on it. I'm looking for the scientific dating information on the internet to find out how they dated it and how they prove its date. That's what I'm looking for. Or whether they're just comparing it to other contemporary items that they found. So that definitely is like a liberty cap shape, the head of this animal here. And if you put the long stalk in it, it's like at the other side of it, you know, it's fitted at the other side. It also kind of looks like, might look like a tulip as well, actually, when it's got a stalk in it, you know. But there are other plants that they attribute powers to, like mandrake, and you know, and you've got all these various Selenica plants actually related to the potato, but you've got all those datura sort of plants and things like that are meant to be all weird and mystical. There's meant to be quite a lot of different ones. So, but definitely is that definitely is magic mushroom shaped prominently. It's weird that is the same shape as that that mound as well, that Warriors Tomb mound and the Liberty Island. I can't believe I hadn't seen this item before. This sort of makes sense to the whole Harry Potter thing, you know, where she's got all the Harry Potter wands from. You can actually buy all the Harry Potter wands. You know, they're actually making a fortune. She's making a fortune out of those Harry Potter wands. Is J.K. Rowling, which is kind of funny. You know, Jeff Bezos actually probably making as much money out of it as J.K. Rowling, because he's probably selling them on Amazon, and you can get all these different fine-tuned wizard wands that have all got different ornate carving on them, like other whole different sets of Harry Potter ones from the books, but yet not as actually popular as the real Astelle, but the religious item, you know? It's weird having a religious item that is connected to bishops in Christianity, or very early Christianity, that still retains, if this is a legitimate item, that still retains the liberty caps and the animal, you know, the dragon or the beast on it, because the church nowadays, it's all about the cross and Jesus, and, you know, they've got all the writing, the Latin writing and the stained glass windows, but they don't really do much animalistic things, or nothing that's anything like, you know, for example, South American shamanism, because all that was wiped out when Cortez went over and all the church went over there and, you know, put a stop to all that. It's very, I think it's absolutely fascinating to have an item that is, you know, if it is correct on the day and if it is legitimate, that it's very, and it's weird that the early church themselves, if they made this, are putting on that animalistic aspect to it in 800 or 900. This is when the Book of Kells is getting made as well. But yet, only in, I mean, 900, 1,000, 1,100, 2, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5. So, you know, 1,500, this is sort of, we're talking about South American conquest, going over to South America properly. And let's fight, still 600 years, you know. So, but then you've got, you know, the church turning up there and, you know, eradicating all that. But yet only in 900, you know, it's only, you know, between there and sort of the 1500s, you're looking at, you know, they would have been taking over. They would have been, you know, maybe bishops would have been sent over with an item that had an animal face on it. So it makes you wonder if this been legitimate, if Cortez, for example, had have been alive in 800 or 900 and not in, you know, 1500s or whatever it is, then 15 or 1600s, whenever it is, then it's interesting that you might have a situation where what would have happened if that would have been in the 800 or 900s when they sent bishops out and they had these pointing sticks and they turned up with the Mayans, and they'd find that they're doing all these carvings and hieroglyphics with animal faces and depictions that are very, very similar or nearly identical to what they've got on their own bishop's pointers. Now that would be something. What would have happened then? You know, would they have swayed back? You know, because you see, they've got this thing where they're like, you know, it seems to be like, you know, these different waves. You've got this Celtic culture of the Druids that is passed on from the prehistoric people or somehow evolved from them, and we definitely know they were painting themselves all the way from Gaul up to the Scotland to the Picts, right, with colours. And then you kind of get all this sort of Roman, well, even Christianity is illegal in Rome, so they don't want any religion then when this Roman Empire takes over, you know. But then, you know, this, you get Christianity's meant to be spreading, but then the Romans pull out. Then you kind of get this renaissance of this liberty caps and mystical sort of these items here, which is sort of related to the Arthurian. It's almost like this is the Merlin ones, really, because that is the era that it's meant to be in, isn't it? The whole King Arthur, and it's meant to be related to that period, the Dark Ages or whatever. So it's very interesting to, have this research of these items that have actually got these animal decorations as part of the religious sect. But then you get another wave coming back over after the Romans sort of come in, then go back out again. You get all those clog teach popping up as well. You get in Ireland, you get all these clog teach, and a few in Scotland as well popping up. But then you get this wave comes back over again, the Vikings, and then you get this other wave with the Normans, and then they build all these castles. But then the clog teach seem they kind of absorb it into some of the castles. Have got them sort of built into the structures in some of the churches, but then it sort of kind of goes away, and then it's kind of all about this. You just got this Jesus on the cross. To be honest, when I was watching the last time I saw the Pope on TV, they were all sat doing like a talk, and they were all sat, all the bishops and the Pope, and there's one of them at the front doing this talk, and they had this Christ model, and it wasn't like the real life size of a person. It was kind of like a bit smaller, so it wasn't really life size. And to me, it kind of looked a bit odd. It's just very, very odd with this kind of mannequin of a, this sculpture of a human man, but it was like the size of it, it's just a bit weird. It was a bit plastic. It actually looked like it was plastic one, actually, and it just wasn't the right size for a person. It was like, and it's just like it's a very weird it's a very, very weird sculpture, really, for religion. It definitely is all about pain and suffering, and it's a very different vibe to what you get on these items. Which is, this character is definitely not being pain or in torture, but he doesn't necessarily look happy. But there's definitely a lot going on anatomically with all this symbolic, all these different rods and elaborate finales, and the stomach area and the gut with the jewels and everything. And then you've got this beast with all the decorations. It definitely is something. It's a lot more interesting. I mean, you can't deny that. It's a hell of a lot more interesting than a guy on a wooden cross with his hands nailed on it. I'll tell you that. So I haven't actually been able to look underneath this one yet. One of the other ones, it's just like basically solid crystal, but it's got like a golden cross holding the crystal in. But I don't actually see underneath this one yet, because the other one was perfectly circled. This one's like the tear shape. So it does look more like, it starts to look like, you could look like a wild boar, that, couldn't it? And it's like kind of got a ring around it, It does also look phallic as well. I definitely think it's with a dragon. You see, you have got, they have got the dragon emblem. I mean, you've got Dragon Hill, and you've got the Uffington horse. That some say that horse is meant to be a dragon, not actually a horse. And then you've actually got the Pembry Cross, which is like a big dragon. And our hill fort is actually the shape of that. Well, the one that's been built on. There are lots of questions, and I don't usually have questions, because I usually have got lots of, I have questions and also, things to say that need raising up and being aware of. It is interesting, like it's approximately, it does look like a little frog, I'm interested to know how they dated this. I want to know how they dated it, what methods they used to date it, and the other ones, or is it they only dated it because they found so many other ones that it's obvious the age of them, and they're just saying, oh well, it's contemporary to those, you know. That's the question. I want to know what the dating process and procedure was. But then again, why would you make, you know, this amazing item that was the same shape as, you know, certain mounds, if you were going to rubbish those sites, you know? So that tends to me that it could be legitimate. And then you got the gold Liberty cap on there. It's almost like you could fit the Harry Potter wand in there, isn't it, you know? It's almost like, because when you actually buy the Harry Potter wands, I haven't got any because I'm not really that into Harry Potter, but I've seen them for sale, and they're just kind of like the one part. It would almost be like you could like fit, you know, if you're looking for something to fit in it, you could stick one of the Harry Potter ones in, take your pick which one you want. It's kind of tragic in a way, isn't it, that someone writes a fantasy novel and they sell more of these fantasy items from a movie, from a film, than people are actually interested in having an actual replica of the real item itself. If it was legitimate, if it wasn't legitimate, it'd be a bit sad if everyone had one. Although, you know, at the end of the day, there's not that much difference to having a Harry Potter thing that's complete fiction than even if this is complete fiction or not. You know, because I actually did get a Gunderstrip Cauldron once, but I wasn't impressed with the quality of it. And the size of it, you know, I thought it was a bit kind of cheap, really. But I question the authenticity of that. But it would be cool to see the actual real one, you know, because it's meant to be quite big. Be cool to, regardless of its authenticity, I would like to see it in real life because, you know, it looks quite interesting, you know. And there's meant to be a plate missing off it, isn't there? Interesting, there's one plate missing off it that therefore makes it into sort of like a torque shape without. But with minus one plate, it makes it more into a torque shape, doesn't it? So, but then again, I suppose you might as well just question whether how many of the torques are legitimate or not. They definitely must have had them because, you know, we've got these old ancient writers like Strabo talking about them, you know. And actually, I think that if they come to think of it now, if they're mentioning these Astelles in the actual ancient texts, in the ancient writings, then they must be legitimate because they probably were talking about using them. That's probably why they know about what they're for, you know, not just from the picture on it. If there's lots of writing from that era that survived, they're probably talking about them. So it's probably me that's wrong, but, you know, then again, if not any one of them has been fully described, you know, suppose, you know, he could have changed the shape of it or whatever, but it's doubtful that, you know, if someone's wanting to rubbish that culture or attack it, I doubt that they'd have made the Liberty Cap and the Dragon and put it onto the this part here. But then again, you've got the sort of cross and the poppy bit implemented onto it as well. And I need to see underneath this to see if it's got the cross shape on it. I'm just trying to find a picture of underneath it. So I'll carry on looking now.